Hello, and welcome to ReCongress 2021 virtual event. We are so excited that you are joining us for this workshop. My name is Donna Heckler, and I am most happy to be here with you today. I was a global marketing corporate executive for most of my career. For the past several years, I have focused on bringing my marketing knowledge and background to bear on our Catholic faith, our parishes, and our ministries. Part of that was the launch of my most recent book entitled Marketing God, Inspired Strategies for Building the Kingdom. And that was published by OSV in 2019. With that book as the foundation, the talk today is about marketing, branding, and positioning your parish and ministries in our new reality. Wow. Has this world ever changed due to COVID? As a marketer, I see three key things that I think about. First of all, people are afraid, and rightfully so, due to this pandemic. Secondly, they have developed habits of not attending, of not doing things, of even sitting in their easy chair to watch Mass. And that leads me to number three. In marketing speak, they need a compelling reason to return. So, given this current reality, let's discuss how marketing can help as we invite others back to our ministries and parishes. Let's start by talking about the words brand and marketing. I have to tell you, brand and marketing, those words are not bad words. When I first started doing some work with some parishes and religious organizations, I walked in the door the first day and somebody said, whatever you do, never use the words brand and marketing. And that really bothered me because those words for me really pack a punch. Now I recognize that because we use them so much in the secular world, we think about brand and marketing as being all about money, 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 right? And that's not what we're about as faith-filled people. But if we remove the veneer of money, we begin to understand what those words really mean. Brand really means what we say. It's what we're conveying. And marketing is really about what we do, how we get the messages out there. So we're going to spend some time thinking about both those words as we go through our discussion today. But let me stop for a second and explain how these slides are going to work. The slides are often linked to a particular truth that's in the book, Marketing God. The truth number is going to be shown in the bottom left corner in the little red bubble. And the title of the truth is the headline of the slide. In the book, each of the truths has an individual Bible verse. And we have gone ahead and shown that Bible verse at the top of each of these slides, so you have that information as well. So let's dig in. One of the fun facts that I love to share is that the average person sees over 6,000 marketing items a day, and that's not even everything they see online. Can you even believe that? Whenever I share this little piece of information, I always hear two comments. First of all, Donna, how is that even possible that we see that many things a day? And second of all, it doesn't really matter because we don't compete with Walmart or Energizer or Nike. So let me answer those questions right from the beginning. To begin with, how do we possibly see all these things a day? Let me tell you about my morning. I wake up and I hit my iPhone, Apple iPhone, and turn off my alarm. I stumble into the shower, I grab my Dove soap, my Redken shampoo and conditioner, finish my shower and I towel off with Ralph Lauren towels. I grab my Oral-B toothbrush and Crest and brush my teeth. And I've not even walked into the closet yet to begin to get dressed. All of those little images are bombarding my head as they are bombarding all of our heads every single day. That's how we get to over 6,000 images. And that leads to our second issue. You say you're not competing with the Nikes and Walmarts of the world, but I'll tell you what you are competing for. You're competing for space in the consumer's mind. Their brains are so filled with these secular items because it's the secular companies that are making all the noise. You, your parish, your ministry, our faith, we have to cut through that clutter. And the question is, how do we do that? How do we cut through clutter? One of the simplest ways and best ways is to utilize a brand. Brands are designed to help do exactly that, to cut through clutter. But let's explore how that works and what they do. Let me start by asking you a question. What is a brand to you? Think about that for a minute or two and write down some of the things that you think a brand might be. Don't worry, I'm not really checking your work. I just want you to explore for yourself what you think it is. Is it a trademark? Is it a logo? Is it an ad? Is it a name? What if I told you that a brand is not any one of those things, but it's a combination of all of those things? They all play a role in conveying the brand. So let's dig into this one even more as well. Very simply, a brand is a promise. It's a promise that we are making to our users, to our parishioners, to our participants. I love this particular Bible verse because it's so true. The outside of our cup is what we show the world, and that outside of the cup has to match what's inside. In other words, we have to keep our promises. Let's explore this a little bit more deeply. A brand is a promise of trusted performance. Performance is what you actually do. It's the products you provide, or it's the service you offer. It's the work that you're giving and providing to others. We convey what we do through the perceptions we create in the marketplace. This is where the tagline and the logo and the advertising and trademarks, all of those items come into play. Those items are all helping to convey what you do. Together, they are communicating the promise that you are making. The challenge is, as with any promise, it needs to be kept. So what you say you do, you have to actually be able to do. Let me give you a simple example. If you say that your parish is friendly, but no one welcomes you or smiles or greets you when you arrive at the office or at church, is it really friendly? Unfortunately, you may want to be friendly, but if people aren't performing, if they're not being friendly, it will not feel like that promise has been kept. Let's take a minute and look at these blue boxes. Within the book itself, we always had questions for reflection. And when they're appropriate, I pulled them into the slide in a blue box. So when you see these, I invite you to pause the workshop for a second and take a few moments to reflect and capture the thoughts that you might have around the questions presented. So why don't you take a moment now to pause the workshop and reflect on the promise of your ministry, your parish. Are the perceptions that you put out there consistent with that promise? Let's think about an easy example. I like to use this one because I actually used to work there, but also because it's something we can all understand and identify with. And that is Energizer batteries. If I ask you what's the promise of Energizer, virtually everybody will be able to say, well, it's long lasting. Yes, that's the promise of Energizer, it's long lasting. How did we create that promise? We created perceptions using a variety of different tools, but the one that most of us know about is the bunny that keeps going and going and going, right? That bunny never stops. And that perception then conveys a promise of long lasting. But then we go to the performance itself. That battery has to perform. When you pull the battery out of the package and you put it into your device, if that device does not start right away, or if it dies after an hour, has Energizer kept its promise to you? Probably not. Will you buy the battery again? Probably not. The thing about perceptions is that there's a variety of ways that you can convey them. So if you look closely, you'll see that bunny is right back on that package. You'll also see the logo is italicized. You know that's done intentionally to convey long lasting and energy. So all the little things that we do help to convey our promise. So again, we remind you that whatever we promise, we need to keep. And now let's think about your own brand. The one thing we always want to do is start with performance. And the way you do this is you want to list everything that you do. List the services, the products that you may offer, list it all out. Look at that list and craft a promise around that. Based on all the things you do, what is it that you are promising? And I will say, keep the promise short. It doesn't have to be long, just a few words is usually best. One of the cautions that I'll offer is that way too often people will start with perceptions, but perceptions are often aspirational. And if you're not able to deliver on those perceptions, your users will feel like you've broken your promise. So that's why starting with your performance is so important, because it helps to ensure that your promise reflects what you actually can do. Once you have identified all the things that you do, your performance is outlined, and you've taken a crack at writing that promise, put those items aside for a moment. Now begin to list the perceptions that you have, and importantly, that you want to create in the market. Now, make sure that if it's something you want to create, that you label it as aspirational. How might you identify these perceptions? Think about how outsiders perceive you. What do they say about you? How do you communicate with them? When your name is mentioned, what do you think people might think? Take a moment now to pause this workshop and consider whether your perceptions reflect what you do and the promise that you offer. One of the things that we talked about in the beginning is the fear from COVID. And I want to mention that here because fear is very compelling for us as humans. It truly directs much of how we act and react. And the fear due to COVID is very real and very significant for everyone. Because we are contending with COVID right now, I would offer that you consider doing the same exercise around building the promise, but doing it specifically for COVID. Think of this as a short-term promise of how you are going to address the fears of COVID. So do it the exact same way. List your performance. What are you doing at your parish, at your ministry, at your organization around COVID? Given all the things that you are doing, what is the promise that you're making to those who use and participate and come to you? Now, given that, what are the perceptions that you have created around COVID? How are you sharing your promise around COVID? Ask an additional question on this one, and that is, what are the fears that your parishioners or users have given COVID? And I suggest you ask that question because different people, different groups of people will have different fears. So it's important to understand that. So as you reflect on your promise and your performance, you're addressing the fears that they have. One last point to mention here is that there is so much messaging around COVID right now in the media. So think back to the clutter. Think back to all the things that are being said. In this particular case, you're going to have to break through the clutter of the messaging around COVID so that people know what you are doing specifically, so that they know when it is safe for them to return to you. You're going to have to share this information loudly so that they can hear it despite all the other media coverage that is out there. And a way to share loudly is to share over and over and over again. One of the things that we need to consider when we think about our promise from a marketing perspective is what we call differentiation, or really what makes us unique. It is understanding differentiation that allows us to have a clear position or role in someone's mind. Differentiation is important. It does a number of things for us. It helps us break through the clutter that is in someone's head. It helps to distinguish us from others. It makes us memorable and allows someone to have clarity around our promise. Pause for a moment and think about your promise. Is it unique? Does it distinguish you from others? I always love this slide, and I love to start by saying, what flower do you see? I love the image because it so clearly demonstrates the importance of differentiation. It's not just that the yellow flower stands out to you now as you look at it, but if I ask you in a few minutes to describe a flower, you will be able to give me a better description of the yellow flower, all because in a sea of white flowers, it's the yellow flower that stands out. Your promise is special when it's unique. And what we have is so very special, and that leads to our compelling reason. As Catholics, we have the Blessed Eucharist. We have the real body and blood of Christ. We have something that no other faith has. And yet, if people don't understand that, it makes it hard for them to understand why they should come to Mass in person, why they should spend time with Christ in adoration. As we begin to invite people back to our parishes and our ministries, to me, it's very important that we're mindful of this very unique promise of our faith. As we are mindful of our uniqueness and we are able to share that, it will be very meaningful to others and will assist them to move past the fear that they've been experiencing due to COVID. So remember that compelling reason and remember to continue to share it. As we've talked about, COVID is impacting every country, every state, diocese, and even every parish so very differently, which means that our timing to reopen and re-engage is going to be very different as well. Regardless of what your timing is, regardless of when you can invite people back to your parish or to your ministry, regardless of when you can re-engage with them, a very important step will be helping them to break these new habits that they have. This habit of watching Mass from an easy chair, or if not, attending an event. How do we break these habits? We do that in a few different ways. When we pull these things together, when we first of all, help them understand your unique promise. Second of all, when they learn why they don't have to be afraid, what you're doing to make sure that they stay safe. And three, when they understand the compelling reason. By communicating these three things, you will have paved the way for people to come back to you. Early on, we discussed that the brand promise describes what you say, and that marketing is how you say it or what you do. And there's so many different ways that you can say something. You can do it through the websites and social media, through your newsletters or bulletins in person. The list goes on and on and on. And you each probably have your own ways of communicating. The key thing, though, is no matter what marketing tactic you use, you have to say the same thing over and over and over again. You may get tired of it. We may get tired of it, those of us who sit in leadership positions or marketing positions, but that does not mean that your participant or parishioner has even heard about it yet. The key thing is to keep repeating it in so many ways so that they do begin to hear your unique message. One of the truths from the book that I get asked about all the time is truth number 4. And that's the one that everyone needs to own the brand. Is that really true? Is always the question. I'd like to share a story about Southwest Airlines. If you have ever flown on Southwest, you might have heard a flight attendant sing a little ditty or crack some jokes. I can tell you, as someone who used to sit in the corporate seats, that no one called the flight attendant that morning and said, make sure you sing as flight 2427 takes off for St. Louis. We don't do that. So, how does the flight attendant know that it's okay to sing to you. They know because they understand the brand. While the flight attendants do not direct the brand, they do live it. And as a result, we all experience the brand in very similar ways. What would happen if we all owned our faith, our parish, our ministry's promise, and lived it vibrantly? If we all did that, wouldn't that help others experience our promise as well? That is what we mean when we say everyone must own the brand. We're not saying that they're all going to lead it, but they all must play a role in helping to convey your parish, your ministry, your organization's brand to others. So how do we do that? In fact, I was just in a meeting the other day and somebody said, everything seems so disconnected. I don't know how we coordinate all of this. And I will tell you, it's actually pretty simple. We have to start with the promise. The stories we hear of people, one person running a website and somebody else leading the newsletter and somebody else doing all the social media, that's pretty common. But when you do it like that, everything starts to feel disconnected. So the way we connect is not based on the medium, it's based on the promise. So you start with that. Once you've identified your promise, then you can begin to categorize into how you're going to convey the information, into the marketing side of the equation, right? Then you can begin to define the various mediums you use. And within each of those mediums, there are probably a series of individual tactics. But if you notice, everything links directly back to the message. So by starting with the promise, that's how you can make sure that no matter what tactic you use, no matter how you try to communicate, the message will always flow through. One of the most important things you can do is to plan out what you are going to say. Of course, your brand promise is at the top of the list every single time, but we recognize that there are also other messages that you may need to share, announcements or events coming up. It becomes really important to plan all these things out, not just so it's thoughtfully put together, but importantly, when you plan out the messaging, you are then able to share the plan. If we really want everyone to own the brand, we need to help everyone know what the messages are. So when you share the brand and the plan, that allows everyone to know what you are communicating. And in doing that, they can reinforce the messages for that particular week. So planning is so very important as we pull all of this together and we share the brand in a very consistent way. As we pull everything together, let's think about these items. When you share your unique promise, when you help people to not fear, to fear not, you are taking the right steps. When you provide them a compelling message, when you share your promise and your messages consistently and broadly, something's going to happen. You will find that you are soon saying, welcome back. We've missed you. We are so glad that you were able to join us again. Welcome back. I would like to thank you. I'd like to thank you for joining our ReCongress this year. Thank you for participating in this workshop. But importantly, thank you for the wonderful work you are doing in God's kingdom here on earth. I know our ReCongress has lots of information about the speakers, and I invite you to look me up on their website. They have many tools and pieces of information that I make available to everybody, such as my Marketing God email list or my Facebook group on Marketing God. I'm just trying to offer a variety of ways for people to obtain more information and share marketing techniques that work with each other. So thank you, our ReCongress, for sharing all the links. and thank all of you for all the good work you're doing. As a final note, remember that ReCongress 2021 virtual event will remain accessible online until March 21st at midnight. We pray that we will be in person for this gathering in 2022. Be sure to check out the ReCongress website for updated information at www.recongress.org. Thank you.